iTunes session.
So here we are today with the fabulous Lykke Li. Lykke, your dad was a musician and you were influenced by music at an early age. What are your earliest memories of music and how did music shape who you are?
Yeah, my dad, he was in a band. My mom was in a band too for a short while, so I think music has always been a part of my life, and we've always had instruments hanging around and played loud music. But I do believe that music is a part of everybody's life. I think everybody, music is everywhere, so I don't think you necessarily need to have musicians as parents in order to be influenced. But it was a big part of my life.
And are there any songs that you heard at a young age that helped you decide to become a singer-songwriter?
Yeah, I mean, my dad listened to a lot of Bob Dylan and Bob Marley and Neil Young and Robert Wyatt, so it was always proper songs. But then also when I lived in Portugal, when I was younger, there is this style of music called fado, which I listened to a lot also too growing up, and it's kind of a very melancholic type of music, and it's a lot about longing, and I think that's also what you have in Swedish music. So I think, a mixture of great songs, but to have that longing in them was always very important for me.
You moved around a lot. What languages do you speak?
I do speak English and Swedish, and then I'll get by on Portuguese, and because in Sweden too, so I'll understand Norwegian and a bit of Danish. Yeah.
That's so great. And when you are writing a song, do you write it in Swedish?
Oh no, I always write in English, never in Swedish. I think because all the music that I'm listening to and influenced by is in English, and I do read a lot of books and poetry, and that's in English too. So I think my whole sense of formulating myself when I talk about emotions is actually easier in English than in Swedish.
Now, Björn Yttling produced both youth novels and Wounded Rhymes. When did the two of you start working together, and how has his production influenced your sound?
Yeah, so I met Björn when I was about maybe 20. I just got back from New York after quite an unsuccessful trip. And I've never really found the right people to work with, so that's why I was never in bands, I was always kind of a loner trying to find somebody who understood me, and they never really did. So when I was 20, I started doing demos by myself, and then I sent them around in Sweden, and then this guy told me about Björn and said, you would love him and you would work so great with him. So I just got his number randomly, and then I called him, and then I went to his studio, and I didn't have a track record or, nothing to show or anything like that. But we just started talking, and I think he kind of took a leap of faith and decided that I had some potential. And then I've just stuck by him ever since.
Fantastic. So how does your creative process work? Do you start with lyrics or music, or is it a little bit of both?
It's a little bit of both. I think for me it's always very important to find some sense of truth in my songs. So it starts with an emotion or like a feeling that I can't get rid of. It's something itching in me. So lyrics is very important for me to try to formulate how I feel, and then music comes after. But then at other times, I'll just start jamming or something, and then I'll find lyrics later. So it depends on what I'm aiming for, and sometimes I do also just want to have fun, and kind of experiment. But a lot of my songs grow out of some kind of discomfort in life.
Okay. And do you have song ideas written before you go into the studio, or do you write on the fly?
We never go into the studio with like half-finished songs, so we'll just write on the songs until they're done. So once we enter the studio, I'll have the song in direction. So it's kind of like a craft, like we'll work really hard on just the core and everything, and then we'll go into the studio. But they do change in the studio a lot. In the studio, it's all about to catch the magic and to also be able to live in the moment and see what happens.
There's a distinct difference in the sound of your two albums. What caused you to make such a change in your style?
Yeah, it's probably a change and an evolution. And that's what I do enjoy about it too. I think the way that I work is that I'm kind of driven by my inspiration and also driven by my restlessness. I get really tired and over it really quick, so I'll just despise anything I did before, you know. So it's always about moving forward and to do something that kind of goes against what I did before. So it's like a ping pong. So there was a big change in my life and what I wanted to do, but it was just a natural change. It kind of grew to that place. You know, I had to make the first album in order to make the second album and to find what I want to do and to become even more myself.
And where were your albums recorded?
The first album was recorded both in New York but also in Stockholm. And the second album was written in New York, Stockholm, and LA mostly, and then I recorded it in Stockholm.
So would you say that the location of the studio influences the sound of the album?
I don't think so. I think it's more important where I'm writing, but then, of course, when you're recording, you have to have some kind of, there has to be a privacy and try to create your own bubble and keep it very intimate, and I don't want to know what's going on outside of it. So I mean, my dream was I would rather go to, you know, like to do the Rolling Stones and go to France and to have a castle and just have everybody stay there. But then because reality is reality, my band couldn't go and people had babies and, you know, no money, etc. So I decided to build that little castle in Stockholm.
When you're in the studio, do you have a lot of friends and family around, or do you prefer to keep the sessions private?
Yeah, it's very mellow, and it's, you know, we're all there to get the songs done, so it's not a lot of like hang-arounds and groupies hitting the good old pipe or something like that, you know. It's very much only musicians and whoever's working on it. But it all depends, you know. Sometimes I can suffer from like anxiety and be like, oh my God, I can't get it right. So, but it is a very laid back, I love it. It's good, yeah.
Do you enjoy performing and being on tour?
I do love to perform, but I do not necessarily love to tour, actually.
Do you like playing large festivals like Coachella or smaller venues and theatres?
I do like to perform in smaller places because I'm a fan of intimacy and that heartfelt, and that also like you face yourself more, you know. You can almost hear your own heart pound. So I do enjoy that more. I think when you perform for a really large crowd, it's like you can't even understand it yourself. It's a very outside of your body kind of situation. That can be fun, but it's very hard to grasp.
What's the best and worst thing about being on tour?
The best thing being on tour is being on stage every night and not knowing what is going to happen, and the band becomes so tight, and you definitely live in a bubble, you know. The outside world doesn't, it's like being on, you know, I can imagine, you know, being on, if you're an astronaut, you're just like in that little ship or whatever it's called. It's kind of like that being on stage. I mean, being on tour. But it's also hard because there's no privacy and you can't, there's always a schedule to follow, so there's not a lot of freedom involved, you know, and I'm a very big fan of freedom, and so that can be a bit hard.
And when it's time to get back in the studio, do you have any rituals to help you get back into the studio mindset?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually not that much in the studio that I would want to. I'm only in the studio when I'm actually like recording an album. So I'm not one of those, because I don't have my own studio, and so I'm not in the studio unless I'm recording my new album. But I think the biggest part after this whole tour was to have just some time completely off, completely outside the whole music scene. So I think it's just very important to start from like a clean slate once you go back into the studio.
What's the biggest factor in choosing a song to cover? You know, are you friends with the artists, or is it just music that you've grown up with and that you love?
I mean, I listen to so much music, and I'm such a music lover, you know, and I love a perfect song. But the songs that I do feel like I want to cover, I mean, there's a few songs that I would never dream to touch because I feel there's nothing I could add to it. But I think I always have to find, you know, I have to relate to the lyrics, and I have to, yeah, understand it and take it to heart, but also feel like I could do it differently, if there's something that I could add. Um, so if there's a great song in there somewhere that you can bring out in another form, then I'll try to do it.
Good stuff. And how do you feel when you hear one of your songs remixed or sampled, or someone else putting their spin on something you've created?
It's a very strange feeling, but yeah, it's just kind of strange. That's that's how I feel about it. But it is, I guess, in some way a compliment. So it's a very outside body experience again.
And Lykke, you've collaborated with several artists. Do you have any plans to work with anyone else soon? And if you could pick one artist to work with, who would that be?
I think I did a lot of collaborations in the beginning, but I haven't really done them for a long time. So I think those collaborations just kind of happen, I'll get asked to do something. But I do enjoy working with the people that I know already more, because I think it's more, you can evolve more as an artist. But if I could work with somebody else, then I would bring back Lee Hazelwood from Death, and he would write a song for me and we would duet.
When you're on tour, does your set change and evolve?
No, every show is different, and also because I like to see what kind of energy there is, and to be bouncing back and forth between that energy. So, but it does get a bit more aggressive the more I play, because I just want more adrenaline, So everybody will be pounding harder, or also keep it more loose, I think that's the most fun, when people really know the songs and you can just freestyle.
When you're in the studio recording, do you play a lot of instruments yourself, and does the band enjoy jamming together?
We don't necessarily jam that much. It's more like playing the song, and then we'll just play on different things, or like for this record we brought in all this percussion from all over the world. So we just had a big box of percussion and just gave whoever was around something to hit on, So it's more about try to find a soundscape than actually trying to jam songs. I'm a very limited instrumentalist, but I think that's probably I can see that as a strength, because I just I'm very like Keith Jarrett the way I play anything. Very minimalistic.
And so what music have you been listening to recently?
Well, I do listen to a lot of different music, and it's depending on what I feel like too. If I need to, I've enjoyed listening to like Italian opera, or put on some Arvo Pärt just to relax. But then I keep going back to the same music all the time. I listen to a lot of Neil Young and Leonard Cohen, Nina Simone, This Mortal Coil. So just, good songwriting. Velvet Underground. Kind of every song they did, I wish I did written.
So you've just had a birthday recently. You're a Pisces. Do you follow astrology?
I do. When I read those books, I do feel like I am a Pisces, into my bones. But I don't follow it. But I do believe that we're influenced by the moon, of course. But I'm not on those sites every day, no.
And do you watch a lot of movies, and do you listen to scores and soundtracks?
I'm a massive movie fan. I do love movies, and that's what I do, on my free time. I'll watch a movie. So, yes, I'm very influenced by movies and soundtracks, I think. But I don't really, I think it's a part of the same world, music and visuals.
So if you were stranded on an island, Lykke, what movie would you choose to bring with?
I'd bring the John Cassavetes box set. Yeah, to keep it real.
So just wrapping up now, if you could speak to your fans, what would you like to tell them?
The thing that I keep thinking about is that it's kind of, when you're in a position that you have, 2 records out, and I just want everybody to know that I'm kind of on the same journey as everybody else. This is just the start for me, and I just, I'm just experimenting, and this is like it's more my intention and vision and ambition that it's actually what I'm managing to do. So just to keep an open mind and to keep experimenting, and I want to be Bob Dylan as much as anybody else out there, you know. So, yeah, I'm just very grateful to have the chance, but I'm definitely not done or at my peak.
So we haven't heard the last of Lykke Li.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, we're all in this together. So I really, really do hope that you did enjoy our little efforts and that you keep coming back for more.
iTunes Session.